Live right on 12 o'clock today. We're right on time. Here we go. Excited to get this whole thing started. Let me go ahead and bring up everything I need here. What's the screen looking like? Thank you guys for coming in. Appreciate it. Here we go, chat. Awesome. If you guys are, if you guys watched the live last week, go and leave me a comment, give me a like. That's always important. I'm going to give a little bit of time for people to come in here, get started. Like we talked about before, or if you've got a message from me, hello, Zishan. Zishan, how's it going? I'm going to give you a little comment as well. Boom, boom, boom. Hello. Excited as always. The main thing that we're going to be talking about today is going to be the difference between speed and agility, right? The different types of training. I think both of them end up being, critical, right? Both of them end up being big parts of your ability to run faster. And Michael, what's up, man? Love to see it. Love to see it. I'm actually gonna, maybe we'll see. I have Jack as a potential queued person that we'll be able to talk more about here today, Michael. So stay tuned for that. But now I definitely actually will. Now that we have you in here, I actually should have why don't I have my background? Where's my graphics? It's okay. We're gonna have to. Or here, let's go here. I understand. Turn on anyway. Let's see if this works. Yeah, there we go. Green. Boom. Much better, right? Instead of the boring screen before. Go ahead. Ask questions as always. So we're gonna go ahead and hop right into it here. We'll get the other screen queued up. So big thing that ends up being the difference between agility training, speed training is going to be the end result, right? And so when we're talking about speed training, what we're talking about is really increasing your ability to get to like a faster top speed, right? So let's say like a pretty common thing for high schools or athletes that I'm working with, 17, 18 miles an hour, right? And so we're trying to get that to be greater, higher, right? So if you're running 17 miles an hour top speed, we want to be able to increase that 18 miles an hour, 19 miles an hour, right? That goes into speed training. Additionally, I'd say on top of that, right, is going to be the times, right? If we can go and make it so you are, if you're running a 40, let's make it so we're trying to go from 4.8 to 4.6, right? If you're running 100, going from 11 seconds to 10.5 or whatever the case may be. So that would also go under speed training because that's more of like a straight line type of situation. Okay. And so that is really the main thing when it comes to speed. Now, if we're trying to increase your top speed, again, we go back to the example, like if you're running right now 18 miles an hour, part of what's going to make it so you can run faster than 18 miles an hour is going to be what is it you do in your starts, right? How do you accelerate? How well do you go through your first 3 steps, your first 5 steps, your first 10 steps? How do you transition from your start to your drive phase and then into your top end speed? Those are all things that are still considered within speed training, but the end goal, the way to really be able to understand, did we do our job as a speed coach, would be their ability to get to a faster top speed, or their ability to run a faster 40, 60, 100, whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you're working for. So and then a similar thing, the opposite side of that would be agility. Agility is going to be there is some carryover to if you improve agility, you could improve the first 10 of a 10 yard or 40. You could improve the first 10 of a 100 meter, right? But the end goal for agility is not to have a big carryover into results from speed, but it's really to be able to improve change of direction, right? And it's a lot about acceleration, and it's a lot about not only your ability to accelerate, but also your ability to decelerate and not get stuck with your feet into the ground. And so we want to go over a lot of things that I think will help in being able to build more both speed and agility, right? And really get into some important mechanics when it comes to improving within those areas. So we have this queued up here on the left. And really, we'll start off with the agility because, I don't talk a lot about this. And so what I would say here when it comes to, improving like your pro shuttle, right, is when you're first starting, right, we don't want to start and immediately get rotated within our hips. Like this isn't a great position to be in, is to like roll and turn within the hips. These first 4 steps should almost be like a crossover type of a step to make it so then, we're not having to turn the hips too much, right? So part of what we want to be able to do is improve the performance within some of these agility drills. Also, what we want to be able to do is improve our ability to accelerate and decelerate and understand what ends up being, some of the differences here, right? What's up, guys? How's it going? Yeah, you could ask questions here. I don't know. Does this automatically? Yeah, they show, right? Okay, maybe they don't. I have to like click. Oh, okay. No, we don't want to hide messages. We want to show all the messages. So sorry if you guys haven't been able to see the messages, then that is my fault. Oh, maybe when they come up on the bottom. Okay, I see. I'm using this new tool, so I'm still not 100%, into it. But yeah, so part of what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to improve performance within drills, and then another part is being able to actually improve overall performance when it comes to sprinting and when it comes to decelerating and cutting and things like that. So we want to be able to understand both. And so, the main thing with this is when you get turning with your hips a lot, again, this will increase the time because now, so he goes here, he's starting with his hips facing straight ahead, right? And then here he's going and turning. So now he has to get those hips back turned around in order to cut and decelerate, okay? And this is something that is great to be able to see in order to understand, how you can improve. I want to see, I just recently, I'm going to post a video here coming up, and I want to see if I actually have maybe some easy access to it potentially, maybe not. Okay, let me see. Let's scroll down. Let's see if I have some. Okay, so the idea is, and I'm going to go because I just found a video that I did pretty recently on this topic, and so I want to see if I have it here. Nope, doesn't look like I have it. So we're going to go ahead and go back. I'll see if I can add this in here pretty quick. But the point being is we want to be able to not get over caught up in moving the hips to the side in order to improve the drill. Now, we do want to see that, like, this is a great example of when we're trying to decelerate, how does it happen, right? If I'm trying to change directions as an athlete, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to go and slow down into our cut and initiate that by rotation of the hips, right? So if we're trying to move, and obviously depending on the sport, there's going to be different situations for how this is going to end up happening. But we want to be able to start moving this way, let's say, right? That this athlete wants to, is going left, wants to start going right. The first thing that should happen is we should turn those hips, right? Flip the hips around, so then we can start to be able to cut within the lower body. What we don't want to end up doing is we don't want to end up turning first through like the ankles and the feet, right? Because then we're going to put ourselves much more at likely to have things like, ankle issues and knee issues, because we're putting a lot more torque on that kind of lower half of the body. Okay. And so I'm going to actually just go to jumps. Again, if you guys have questions, let me know down below. Would be happy to be able to answer any questions that you guys have. I see here we have one from Zishan. Agility comes from start practice. Yeah, I mean, agility comes from a wide variety of different things, not just start practice, but one of the things that agility helps is definitely start practice. Whoops, I want to be able to shift this over to this side. So here we have just like a basic YouTube video here. I was just going through trying to find some videos. I had a bunch of things I had to knock out this morning. So I wasn't able to film these, unfortunately, myself. But we have an athlete here just working on kind of landing and decelerating, right? Super basic drill. Okay. But what happens is if we're cutting and, so let's say his hips were faced this way to like the right, before this. Okay. So he's already all the way opened up with his hips facing this way. Okay. And now he goes and decelerates and turns and gets himself, faced here. If his hips were still facing the same way as these arrows, what would happen is when he's landing, his foot and knee would also be doing, would also be trying to face this same way. Okay. And how injuries happen, right? Major injuries happen is because we're putting too much of like an internal force on the knee and on the ankle, right? And so there has to be a way of being able to control movement the best that we can, right? And so if we're not able to properly decelerate, right? If we're not able to move our hips around, if we're not able to understand some of the mechanics here, then you're going to put yourself at, again, a lot more risk. Okay. So, that's a basic thing to be able to understand. Like when you're trying to work on change of direction and cutting, we really want to be able to have a great understanding of where our body alignment should be in order to have the most amount of success. Okay. Additionally, on top of that, when we're cutting, and the guy on the left here does a pretty good job, I would say, the better we can sink into our hips, the better off we're going to be, right? The better we can have a knee bend, the better we could have ankle range of motion, the better we could have hip flexion, then the more ability we're going to have to improve our ability to move side to side, right? Our ability to have a great agility, okay? Great change of direction. Those are all things that end up being important when it comes to being able to maximize overall performance and be able to play at a high level, is being able to control our like where's our body mass and be able to bend within those really three key joints. And so if you're working and you're an athlete and you're trying to improve your agility, the first thing that I would say is let's get a basic test for how well can you bend in the ankle, how well can you bend in the knee, and how well can you bend in the hip, right? Do you have any limitations there? Some simple ways to be able to do that would be, single leg squats, right? Just being able to squat down, not holding on to anything, just standing on one leg, squatting down into a bench or squatting down into a chair. And when you're doing that, being able to maintain your knee position, right? Be able to maintain your ankle position, be able to maintain a, really good hip bend, okay? The more effectively we can do that, then the better we are going to be when it comes to implementing those types of movements. So, there's a great, when I first started, I was working a lot with, kind of the rehab side of things and was watching, some of the best when it comes to that, Greg Cook and one of the guys that interviewed him, Perry Nicholson. He had like a podcast that was very big. I think he still does actually. But point is, he was talking, one of his big concepts was like, if you can't do it slow, you're not going to be able to do it fast, right? So if we can't control knee bend when we're doing it slow, when we're in an assessment type of situation, right, then we're not going to be able to do, have great knee bend or great control of knee bend when we're doing it fast, when we're going quickly. So, we want to be able to establish some degree of understanding of how to be able to bend within these key joints, the ankles, the knees, the hips, from a unweighted, stationary, controlled situation, and then implement that into agility training. Okay, so if you have an issue when it comes to being in the weight room with being able to control some of this, now let's be able to improve there, right? And then build even strength through there, right? Build strength and add weight into, single leg type of exercises, squats and different types of lunges and lateral movements and the different options that you have in the weight room, as well as being able to build the strength within the hamstrings, the range of motion within the hip flexors, and the strength within the hip flexors, the range of motion within the ankles, right? All those things want to be addressed as much in the weight room as we can, so then we can have better performance onto the field, right? So we turn with our power leg while decelerating. It's always going to be dependent on the athlete, right? We're not going to be able to, and also the timing of the scenario. I'm answering this question here. So we turn with our power leg while decelerating. Well, it depends on the situation, right? You're not always going to be able to use one leg when it comes to deceleration. So you want to be able to go into a you want to have great ability to decelerate on both sides, right? You don't want to have one side that can decelerate well and the other side not decelerate well. I'd say whether it's your power leg or more of your speed leg or your quicker leg, either way, we want to be able to have good deceleration mechanics within that. And if you guys have any questions, would be happy to be able to answer them as we're going through some of these concepts here. So that's really a lot what goes into agility. We'll go into things that end up being important when it comes to top speed, right? And so when we're looking at top speed and when we want to understand top speed, what ends up being very, very important is the key things. And we've talked about this so many times, and I know this is a concept that maybe you guys haven't all seen today or on my channel, but if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about today, it just shows that you really haven't been watching very many of my videos, because it's a concept that I talk about a lot. And so the key is just the cycle, right? The foot contact time. How much time does it take from when your foot hits the ground to when you're back off the ground? And what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to build up our again, our top speed. So our ability to control our cycle times, right? And understand how to improve our cycle times the best that we can. So we see the time here, right? 0.91. Okay. And we did this the other day, or I think I actually posted it last night with, okay, if we're going to be like, if the goal is to run, a 0.9, right? That means within my leg cycles, I have up to 1.8 seconds to be able to, go from, the 25 here to the 35, let's say. And we'll just say I'm not yet at top speed here, but we can get an idea, right? And I'm just using on form here as my way of being able to, measure this information, right? So I touch the ground at, let's say 9.2. Okay, maybe 9.1. Let's say 9.1. Okay, and then I get to here, about that same place in, probably about 9.8, right? So that's about 1.7-ish, right? In terms of, when my foot landed until when my, where I get to about the same position. It's not bad, right? It's it's not a perfected science here within how I'm looking at it, but I actually ran a pretty good time. I think I ran 4 or 5 on this one to give you guys an idea. So, again, I hit the ground 191, right? And what we're going to be seeing is, how well am I able to cover each step? Okay, so again, I hit the ground at 191. So like, how long does it take me to be able to get off the ground is going to be the first thing that we want to be able to see. And it looks like I'm off the ground at 0.3, right? So I got a sub 0.1 for contact time. That's good, right? I'm driving the knee through. I would say my foot position isn't good as I'm driving the leg through, right? We went over this yesterday. We would like to see, my foot higher up towards my butt at this position. Okay. But as we continue to cycle through, so we're looking at the mechanics as well as getting an idea of time-wise, how well am I doing, right? And getting a good understanding of, how am I hitting the ground, right? How can I improve, blah, blah, blah. So I hit at 0.36, okay? So from 0.91 to 0.36, what are we looking at there? About a 4.7, right? 0.47. And I think what we saw is I need to be closer to 0.44 in terms of my leg cycle. Okay, so I'm a little long, right? And in terms of, how much time it's taking me to get from, landing at that 31 to really landing at 30. Okay, so I'm not doing a great job with my distance. Okay, because I really want to be, closer to, the 30.5 based off of where I landed, right? And I could also improve within my leg cycle. Okay. And so, these are things that we could do to look at how can we increase overall speed. We could do the same thing in the start. We could go through the same things in the drive phase, right? When I'm landing here, I'd say my hips are too far behind. I'd like to be able to get more, height within my body in general, and definitely get my hips more through, during this foot contact, right? I like I said before, it looked like based off the other one that my foot contact time wasn't bad, right? But this one a little bit longer foot contact. Okay. And again, distance wise, we're not covering the distance that we'd like to. We're just going off of one cycle here. Okay, let me try to back this up. I'm getting a little bit better with this. Okay, and so this is going to be my fourth step. Boom. So that hits at 281, right? So let me just see again. I want to go back. Yeah, it was 19. Okay, so what wasn't bad there, I just said I was getting better at this, and then I go and I just do that. Hold on, let me see if I can re-get this. Okay, here we go. So yeah, I was at 191 when I hit, and then I get back down in, really what ends up being a little bit too long, right? Because we'd like to see this closer to 1 second. I wish I could do this on my iPad so then I could use my fingers a little bit more, but okay. One of these days I'll have a better solution than this. But, so as I get to this position, boom, in terms of time, it's not bad, right? Because 1.9 and then getting this foot back down and, under 191. So basically that was 0.09 seconds, right? So in terms of right foot down to right foot down, not bad. Distance though, I'm about a yard and a half short, right? We'd want to be able to cover a full 10 yards. So if a person in his work sitting job, like he sits 7 hours in front of a screen and also do sprint training, would sitting all day affect sprint speed, or can he be professional? Can he still be a professional athlete? Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't necessarily want to be sitting in front of a screen, right? Answering the question here, if you're sitting for 7 hours, that definitely means that you should spend, plenty of time lengthening the hip flexors, working on the hip flexors, working on, building up some of the, things that will help with fat switch muscle fiber. But a lot of that ends up being, based off of your natural kind of genetic, muscle buildup, right? How much fast twitch muscle do you end up, having when it comes to if you want to be able to actually get to a professional level. But then also, what is your, like after professional athletes, after they train and do the things that they do, a lot of them are hanging out and, sitting or laying down, like they're not always just like standing and have their hips in a great position. Everybody sits down. Everybody is not always in a great position. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily, your work situation. Obviously, if you can get more of a standing desk or things like that, that would be better. But a lot of it has to do with more training regimen and what you're doing on that side of it. Then I would say, if the sitting 7 hours is not going to be your biggest limiting factor when it comes to, your ability to become a professional athlete or not. I think it more is, where are you at currently, how much better you have to get in terms of your sprinting, and how it is that you're going to improve that. Now, when you go to the left, okay, we're going to see, building speed, right? And this is something that is going to be acceleration as well as, or agility as well as speed, right? And what are some of the important parts there? Okay. And I would say the most important thing when it comes to, really agility, speed, acceleration is how are we landing, right? What is our ability to absorb force? So the better we can go and, strike the ground with our weight forward, right? And that kind of ball of the foot, right? Get that heel up as much as you can. The better we're going to be at changing the direction, the better we're going to be at being able to build up speed quickly, right? Those end up being really important. It's a really important mechanic in being able to understand. And, a lot of what I see when it comes to, just better understanding of, again, acceleration, agility, things like that is, just the difference between when we're at top speed, going back to me running here on the right, right? When we're at top speed, we have a lot more range of motion in the legs, right? Those legs are cycling fast, but we still have to be able to, be long, right? We will have to be able to pick up, good amount of distance. And so, our legs are going to be able to come up a lot further or a lot higher here to then make it so we can prepare ourselves to generate force back in the ground into the next step. Where here, we want to be really spending the least amount of time off the ground, right? So we want to be able to get this foot, from coming off the ground to driving right back through. We don't want to end up getting, you're having a lot of wasted time with our foot coming up, right? As much as we want to be able to come through, so then we can put more focus into one, height with this foot, right? So as we're coming forward, the more height with this foot, the better off we could be, right? As well as being able to get this back foot into a position where that heel is as high up as possible at takeoff. Okay, so the more we can get into extension within this leg, within this ankle, then again, the better we're going to be at acceleration, the better we're going to be at agility, the better we're going to be at, change of direction, because it just shows that you have a lot of stability and control within that joint, right? If you end up having to have that ankle low, right, or if you're not able to just get to that range of motion, there's weakness within the hip flexors and or tightness within the hip flexors, which then makes it so your ability to knee bend is going to be, not great. It's going to be, something that can improve, right? And so you have to be able to have this type of range of motion in order to, be able to perform at a high level, right? And a lot of athletes, have that, but there's also a lot of athletes that aren't able to get that, right? Or they have to just work on the mechanics. Again, it's very natural for a lot of athletes when they're starting to just allow those heels to come way up into the air, right? And that makes it so now you end up wasting so much time and or distance really when you're starting, right? The idea is when you're first starting, we want to be able to maximize distance for sure, but we want to be able to get those legs turning over as fast as you can, right? So number one thing is being able to get the fast turnover of the legs, and part of that is getting the feet off of the ground quickly. So the higher your foot gets up back behind you here, the longer it's going to take for your foot to then come back off of the ground. Okay, so again, I'm going to say that again. The higher your foot gets up back behind here, and this is going to be during the acceleration phase, then the longer your foot is going to spend on the ground when, during the foot contact. Okay, and so what we have to be able to do is we have to understand that in order to improve foot contact, right, in order for us to be able to maximize our performance, we have to be able to control ground strike. This is going to be something, again, this is speed and agility. Okay, the whole idea here is, to kind of differentiate the two, right? When we went into agility, it was, change of direction. We showed the 5-10-5, but it's more about change of direction, right? It's more about, being able to run in a wide variety of different ways, right? Not being able to run in a straight line, being able to run side to side, being able to, land and be able to accelerate back out, right? All those things are going to be considered agility, where top speed, right? Speed training is how do we improve top speed? Well, both of those are going to be, how are we striking the ground? How are we utilizing our foot? And this is, to me, with athletes, probably the least, utilized thing. I see guys all the time that are improperly utilizing their feet and their ankles, and or by just not utilizing their feet and their ankles when they're running, and it makes just such a huge difference on overall performance, right? And so if you can understand dorsiflexion, the ability to get your foot up and then strike back down the ground, okay, essentially here, let's give you guys like a nice clean example here. Would be a good one here. We could probably just go Shelly Ann or Sydney McLaughlin, I'm sure. Sydney McLaughlin's one of the best in the world. So she'd definitely be able to help us out with being able to see that. So, it's going to take me a second to download it. But when we come to, let's go ahead and fast forward. Let's be able to see kind of a side by side. There we go. Perfect. Right. So when we get to top speed, what we want to be able to do is see how good she does at being able to get her foot up. Right. And this is something that's fairly common. People that are fast are usually able to get their foot up very, very effectively here. But notice that when she goes and strikes the ground, she's striking the ground with her toe coming back down. She's not just keeping her foot up. She's using her foot to strike the ground. So that's what makes it so she runs tall. Right. We'll go and see if we can get, yeah, here we go. Perfect. Look at that. So notice when she's striking the ground, her foot is lower than her heel. Okay, we talk about this a lot, or a lot of coaches talk about dorsiflexion, right? You got to get more dorsiflexion when you're sprinting, and it's critical to get to this position, right? So as you come through, being able to get the shin out in front, right? We can see that she's gotten a great shin angle here. Let me actually change it to this one. Here we go. So she's got a great shin angle here. Okay, 73 degrees. Okay, but now, and getting her toe all the way up, because a lot of times we see guys that just get stuck with their foot at 90, or their leg at 90. Okay, we don't want to be at 90 when we're at top speed. We want to be able to get our shin past 90. Okay, but now she is actively pulling her foot down to be able to land with her foot or toe underneath the heel. Okay, and this is going to be something, again, that's important with the ability to accelerate and decelerate as well, is as we're striking the ground, we want to be utilizing that the dorsiflexion of plantar flexion to control the landing, right? So we don't want to end up absorbing the landing, right? We want to be the force that is distributing into the ground, right? So our foot hits the ground with, and really what will end up happening is it's going to be in a like pronated position, right? So, if we look to see the foot, I don't have an easy thing to be able to find here, but if we look to see the foot, kind of the front view or the back view, right? This is foot's normal, right? When we go into pronation, that means that the inside of the foot's dropping, right? The inside ankle bone's dropping, right? This is people that have flat feet, okay? And we're going to be more of our weight's going to be kind of on the inside, right? Again, flat feet, right? So if you see somebody with flat feet, they have more, their inside ankle bones lower, their outside ankle bones higher. Okay. And so when we're hitting the ground, we want to be in that position, right? We want to be in the position of pronation. Our inside ankle bone is low, right? And then as we absorb, okay, we absorb into supination. Supination is going to be with people that have high arches. Supination is going to be with our outside part of the heel lower than the inside part of the heel, right? So now it's going to be shifting, this way. This is going to be like, this would be the right foot, right? We're shifting this way onto the right foot would be how we'd want to absorb the force, right? Again, this is whether you're sprinting or when you are trying to decelerate, right? We want to be striking the ground in pronation and absorbing through supination and then pushing back off into pronation. Okay, when it comes to injuries, right, what causes injuries is, people are landing on the ground with more of a neutral supinated position within the foot, right? And then as their foot hits the ground, they go into pronation. Their inside ankle bone drops to be able to decelerate, right? And that's what puts all that interior force, right, or that lateral medial force, the inside force onto the ankle, onto the knee, that makes it so now we have instability within the joint, right? Our joint does not want to be, or where we're going to be most stable is going to be, neutral. So, when coaching people, I always tell them, like, we want to be able to keep that foot and knee when landing really at, right underneath each other, right? Stacked right underneath each other. We want to be in a position where, we're not too far outside, too far inside. But if we have to go to one, we want to go outside, right? So if I'm landing on my right leg, if I'm going to be, in one position, I want to have more of my weight going outside than inside because I have more protection with ligaments and with bones on the outside than I do within the inside. Now, as I'm transitioning and pushing off, now we're going to be shifting our weight from that outside into the inside, right? As we are going through any type of toe off, right? So if I land, again, I'm absorbing through my left side, I'm going to be pushing back off and going into pronation or going to the inside of my foot as I'm toeing off, whether that's sprinting or going into different types of cuts. And so, that ends up being a really critical thing to understand from a performance perspective, as well as from a injury prevention standpoint, right? And being able to build that up and put yourself in a variety of situations where you can control that. Okay. And there's different things that we do in order to help people in understanding, pronation and supination, how to be able to control the striking and things like that. That are definitely things that you can implement and see a lot of great results with, right? The more that you're able to expose yourself to, potential problems, right? The more you're able to expose yourself to a wide variety of different movement patterns, okay? Whether it's in the weight room, on the field, blah, blah, blah. It gives more adaptability to your brain, to your body, to your muscles, which is going to help you in overall performance, whether you're, a sprinter or a sports athlete, right? You want to be doing agility type training as well as speed training. So then you have your body has to adapt to, the different things, right? Because even in agility training, what you're essentially strengthening is the frontal plane, right? It's more of the lateral type of work. Well, when you're accelerating, you're putting a lot of stress on the frontal plane, right? There's a lot of stability that has to be within the hips, right? As well as within the lower foot and the ankles, right? The muscles that control pronation and supination, those are very, very critical when it comes to, like, those muscles are very critical when it comes to acceleration. And you can't be fast without those muscles, right? And so build speed without those muscles. And so the agility type training is a great way to build those and build the fast twitch version of those. There's parts of it that you can get within the weight room and training and things like that, but you don't want those muscles to be slow in firing. You want those muscles to be able to respond very quick to foot contact. So then we could be running it. We see Charlianne here. She's running so tall because when her foot hits the ground here and when she's able to stabilize, right, she has a lot of strength within her pelvis, right, and her hips there, as well as within her ankle to make it so she doesn't go in, she doesn't collapse. A lot of people, at least for somebody like Charlianne, right, a woman that is her size, all the stature there, if they were running this fast and created this much force into the ground with their foot, with their ankle, right, they would immediately collapse. Their foot wouldn't be able to sustain this. So then this step they would slow down, right? And then the next step they would slow down. They would slow down. For her to be able to continue to accelerate or even be able to hold this is a huge testament to what she's able to do from a agility perspective, right? From a stability and balance perspective. Okay. Yeah, this is top speed, right? And this goes into building top speed. And she has to have a lot of straight line type or linear strength in order to get to this position. But in order to maintain it, that's going to go into core. It's going to go into posture. It's going to go into, some of it's like cardio and endurance type of things. But then a lot of it's going to be the lateral strength, right? And her fast twitch muscle fibers and her ability for her body to be able to react and respond in a very, very effective way when she's landing. Okay. If you guys have any questions off of that, let me know. I know that was kind of intense there. We're going to finish it up. We're going to wrap it up here. I got a couple of questions to answer. How much time is good for training for such a person in a whole day? I would say, closer to 90 minutes, right? If you can get 90 minutes a day, that would be excellent. Obviously, if you can get, a little bit more, that would be good as well. But with that, I would say, with 90 minutes, it's speed drills, right? That's also sprinting. That's, weightlifting. That's all the different things, strength training, right? You want to be able to do all of those in a, 90-minute session, potentially even, 120 minutes in a day. Because there's just so many things that you could be covering and so many things that you could be enhancing. And, you're not putting a ton of stress on your body, but you're just teaching your brain how to be able to respond to a variety of different situations. Speed training always hit me in the shin. I always get shin stress fracture while I try to improve my foot strike. So, with that just means you got to utilize more of the ability to strengthen when you are, strengthen that lower half of the body when you're in the weight room, right? I do a kettlebell exercise where I put the kettlebell on my foot and, just come up and down. I do circles. All the guys that I've worked with that have had shin splints, they said it's really helped them out. As well as anybody that has not had shin splints. I haven't had very many people start getting shin splints through that. Doing full squats consistently through the week with high intensity and heavy weights can slow you down. Yes, I do think full squats consistently through the week with high intensity and heavy weights can slow you down 100%. And the reason is because you end up building, slow twitch muscle, right? You end up building strength over, the fast twitch, right? So the idea of being able to like squats, right, going into full squats, and we could probably do a live about what we should be doing in the weight room, right? What are going to be strength training exercises to do? I would recommend much more single leg type of exercises when it comes to what we should be doing in the weight room. And based off of your numbers, I would say there's a lot of guys that probably don't need to be getting a lot stronger in their weight room, right? So if you're squatting, if you want to get faster, if you want to improve your agility, and you're squatting 315, then you're probably within the area where you can get a lot faster and can improve within your agility. You just need to spend more time working on that rather than getting stronger in the weight room, right? Now, on the opposite side of that, if you're struggling to hit 225, maybe we should be spending more time and just strengthening the lower body. But a big part of improving, squats, I did this with the team that I worked with. I did primarily lunges for like heavy lunges, right? Pushed it in terms of lunges for, like a 6 to 8 week cycle. And basically everybody's improvement everybody had improvement within their squat, even though we did very little squatting, right? And I think part of that has to do with health within the back, right? When you end up doing a lot of full squats, a lot of times you end up having a lot more health issues in the back, right? You get a lot more tightness within the back, a lot more stiffness there, which impacts the start. Okay, when I start to feel back tightness, the first thing that starts to be negatively impacted is my acceleration, because I don't have the same ability to achieve that hip flexor strength that I need to get my knees up, right, and get my knees up and through. So that ends up being a big thing when it comes to acceleration and building speed, is the lower back flexibility and your ability to have a good flexion within your lower spine, right? Because the more flexion that you have within your lower spine, we're naturally kind of an extension within the lower spine, right? But the more flexion that we have when we're sprinting, right, being able to maintain length, we don't want to end up being like, really short. We want to be able to maintain length. But while we're maintaining length within the spine, being able to achieve large amounts of hip flexion gives us a lot of ability to achieve great acceleration positions, right? And the more that we're limited within lower back flexion or hip flexion, right, or a combination of both, then the less we're going to have when it comes to our ability to achieve great positions when accelerating, right? You could still potentially have good acceleration times, right? It's not the end of the world if you're tight in your back, but in order to achieve the most optimal positions, right, we have to be able to have range of motion within the lower back. And obviously for people, we recommend that you'd be in a good, you have good back health, because over time, that's not going to positively affect you. That will negatively impact you when it comes to your ability to run. So, yeah, with that being said, we're going to kind of come to a close here. Again, if you guys want to send me some messages, send me some emails, we'll be happy to be able to answer those for you. We will be going live Wednesdays, primarily on speed, Fridays, primarily for quarterbacks. I'll also be doing another thing, probably Saturday or Sunday as well. I want to start going live more often. I talked to a guy that, my guy Art, I don't know if he's watching. I know he was watching last time. He was like, you got to do lives more. If you go live, build a little bit better relationship with the people that are, like people that watch your videos, right? Then you'll start to be able to see, more growth within your channel. So I'm like, all right, awesome. I'll go live more. So here we are going live, helping you guys out. And there's so many topics that we could talk about too. So I'm excited to be able to go more on those. Again, if you guys are interested, or having more questions, send me a message on Facebook. On an email is always great. You could reach out to me in a wide variety of different ways. Give us a call, whatever ends up being the best way for you. Check out some of the options that we have for training. We should have a bunch of them in the description. If not, we'll be able to edit that. We do monthly stuff, we do breakdowns, we do things to be able to help you out. In terms of some of these messages, I would not recommend eating. Diet's critical. You don't want to end up having a bad diet. You don't want to end up eating sugar. Try not to go into that whole concept where it's like it's okay to have cheat meals or whatever, because at the end of the day, the guys that are the best don't need that, right? The guys that are performing at the highest level have the most amount of discipline. So the more discipline you could have, the better you could be. And you definitely have to be able to improve your chest and your upper body when it comes to sprinting. Great workouts for being able to push out your hips on the start is going to be primarily hip flexor strengthening exercises. Would be big there, as well as like single leg broad jumps, broad jumps in general. Those are all great things to be able to help your ability to improve your I guess push off. It's not really push off, it's more striking to the ground, right? We talked a lot about the foot. It's more how you strike the ground that has an impact on your start. It's not necessarily how you push off. The big thing that could be negatively impacted with the start is that you're pushing off and getting your foot too high. We want to be getting the knees right through. We want to be able to get the foot and the ankle right through. We don't want to be wasting time with our foot coming up and behind when it comes to the start. How we strike the ground is really the key thing there with the start, with the acceleration, with the deceleration. And so, yeah, again, so going back into some of the options, we have monthly options. We have 3-month options. If you do 3 months, you're going to save some money. If you do the 1 month, we'd be able to happily do that. It's going to be cheaper, but we'll be able to provide a lot of value when it comes to breakdowns, coaching, things like that. I get on the these with people all the time, where we can go and take a look at your running mechanics just like this, and kind of compare and see what are some of the main things we need to work on based off of the timing and the strike, and the main things that go into sprinting mechanics or quarterback mechanics. And then from there, we can go and give you drills and exercises and just some consulting on what it is what you need to improve. Here we go. Milo's supposed to be last one here, and then we're going to hop off, play football. I go to the gym 3 times a week and do 2 times a week of sprinting, 1 acceleration. I do like 10 sprints, 30. What should I improve in my plan? I would say, you'd want to be able to look and see where your biggest area to improve is, right? I'm always big on that. Like, and I just did a video yesterday about that. Check it out. I don't see a big error within your plan based off of this, but I'd have to see your times, right? If you play football, what's your 40? Okay. And then within that, how good is your 10? How good is your 10 to 20? And how good is your 20 to 40? It doesn't have to be perfect, but we have to get an estimation of, where we are. So then we know how to improve. If we are looking at this and if you're a receiver and you're running 5 seconds and, you have a good 10, but a bad 20 to 40, then, I would say, what are we doing in the weight room when it comes to building up your hamstrings? What are we doing in the weight room when it comes to building hip flexor strength? What are we doing in the weight room when it comes to, plyometrics, or in the gym, I guess, when it comes to plyometrics? And then with the, sprinting, how effective are the actual reps when you're doing the 10 sprints, right? 30 to 70 meters. You don't necessarily need to be running 70 meters. We need to be running a great 10 or a great 20, right? Those are going to be, good there. And yeah, so then to answer this question, some good 10s. I went over, like, again, with this whole thing, if you're going to run 4 or 5, you want to have a 165 in the 10. You want to have a 110 in the 20. These are all very, very attainable. And then you want to be able to have a 170 in the 20 to 40 in order to run that that time. Or actually, I think 175, right? That would be the right math. 175, 165 and 110. And then be able to get there. So that would be hold on, let me let me do my great math here. Maybe 285. Okay, to be able to get into 4.5. Okay, and that would be, so 20 to 40 and two, or sorry, 185, right? So it's 275, 185. So those are going to be the times. Some 175 or 185, somewhere in there, will get you within the 4.5 to 4.6 range when it comes to running the 40. Okay, and those are attainable numbers, right? It's 22 miles an hour ish at top speed, but those are, it's not easy at the same time. So that's going to be the biggest question. Most guys are not able to achieve that top speed, run 22 miles an hour. So again, then we got to get into the cycles. Okay, so where are we missing? Are we missing distance per step? Are we taking the right amount of steps? Are we spending too much time on the ground? Is our leg cycle too slow? Then how do we optimize that? Right. And so, that is going to be, then we would go and give you drills to be able to optimize whichever one ends up being the key issue. Right. And so, almost what our programs end up becoming is like a consulting type of a thing. And maybe I should even change it to that, where it's like, speed consulting instead of training. But, we do have training involved in it, which is why, I call it that currently, but it almost ends up being, consulting, because a lot of what we're doing is just coaching you how you can improve, and giving you the understanding of like, this is my these are the numbers, right? This is the situation that you're in. Because when you send the videos, that's what I do, is I go and I look at it and I give you that information, so you don't have the information about your 20 to 40 or your 10 to 20. I go and I look at the times, and I look to see how much time you're spending on the ground, how much time you're spending off the ground, and then I can get a formula for what it is that you need to work on. But if I don't have that information, there's no way to be able to really improve it. So again, guys, thanks for going and hopping on, spend the time. This ended up being about 52 minutes. I tried to pack it in with as much information within that 52 minutes as I could. Again, like, subscribe, all that type of good stuff helps us out a ton. And